Why don't we just start, Betsy, since you have to be somewhere and, Tom will be in there eventually to give his report, but, we've got all that stuff to do.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 4:36. Do we have our secretary? She's not back yet.
Oh, well.
There she is.
Unmute. Betsy, Tom's trying to get on in the video. Can you hear him?
I can't hear him. I saw something about him being in the waiting room. So who's the host of the meeting? Can somebody let him in?
He's already in the meeting. His sound is on, his video is not, according to what I see in the participants list.
Oh.
Suzanne, his video won't come on. Is that anything on your end you can help us with?
I just asked if he could start it. If he doesn't get that prompt from me, then I can't do anything. He'd have to leave and join again.
Looks like there we go. All right.
Hi, Betsy.
Hi, Tom. All right, also I'll call the meeting to order at 4:38. And are there any agenda changes and need to reorder? Okay, doesn't look like it. Then I'll just say a very quick chair's report. Wow, big news. Anne, we're so very, very happy for you. Been an amazing support to us as a committee. There really are no words. Your notes are impeccable. You're so accurate and detailed that it really gives us a glimpse of what really happened in the meeting. Your attitude, your smile. We'll miss you.
I'll miss you guys too.
But we're very happy for your next chapter. So enjoy those grandkids and your husband. It's great. Are there any members that would like to speak at this time? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to citizen speak. And seeing none, we will move on to our priority business with Mary Beth's report.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to give you under chorus and band what the percentages are. Even in COVID, we still have quite a few students who are participating from grades 4 and 5 in those. So 16 students, or 57% of our 4th and 5th graders, are part of band. And chorus. And I wanted to give you a photo of what they look like on their very first day. So I thought that was adorable, and you can barely see him, but Andrew is there up on the green part. We call that the grassy knoll. Yeah, that's where he is.
Oh, dear.
And then for band, we have 13 students, again, from grades 4 and 5, and that's 46%. So very happy about that. And over the weekend is when the most of the moving happened for our classrooms, where we had students who came back, or we have one that's come back, the other comes back next Monday. And so it required, since the number got larger and we really want to stay at 6 feet of distancing for students, that we needed to move that grade 3 class into a larger classroom. And that happens to be where the special needs classroom was. Prior to that, it was the other kindergarten classroom. So we're able to fit them there, which meant that the other class needed to move up to our science lab, which also became our staff room. So now the original grade 3 classroom now is going to be the science lab / staff room. And the only other thing is that today, this afternoon, was our first school health and safety committee meeting. And that consists of the school nurse, the head custodian, the principal, a classroom teacher, a parent representative, and an educational assistant. So the union, they chose who the EA, the ed assistant, and the teacher who that was going to be. So we have Kathy Ferry as the teacher representative. They haven't had any EA come forward yet, being able to be available to come to that. And we still need a parent. So Claudia, Mr. McHugh, Kathy Ferry, and I met today. So Claudia had put together an agenda of items to talk about, and it went very well. So we're going to meet every 2 weeks.
Great.
And I think that's it.
I see Jan's hand up. Do you have a question for Mary Beth?
I do. Mary Beth, I don't understand under enrollment in person, who is looking after the fourth and fifth grade, the fifth grade, 2 kids?
Oh, that's an error. That should have been deleted. That's an error. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. No, that is not an error. It's supposed to be Mrs. Clark. I didn't put her name there.
Oh, so she does all of them,
Right. So that is the classroom for our special needs population.
right?
Yes.
And I thought that only went from K to 3, but it goes all the way to 5?
Yes. So we were getting a waiver from the department because the span of age differences.
Right.
So they're giving us a 1-year waiver for that to happen.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for catching that.
Anything else for Mary Beth? I see Martha's hand up.
I was privileged, and I should have said this during members speak, but it is for Mary Beth. I spent a week doing recess duty at the school, something that I really thought at age 70 I would never have to face, but I actually loved it. And I want to say that Mary Beth and the staff, the teachers, the whole staff they've done an amazing job. The kids are happy. They're, doing everything they can do to stay safe. I think they're way more resilient than we are. And I just want to, I'm beyond impressed. So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great.
I still need a lunch monitor, so if anyone's interested.
Okay, I think we'll move on to Tom's superintendent report.
So just picking up where Martha left off, I think every day that our students are in school is a great day. And I think our elementary schools and Wes have been doing a fantastic job in terms of the complexities and the questions and the changes that are happening on a daily basis. And Mary Beth is in the lead for us on many, many projects. She has been gracious to offer her services to work with Joanna Hughes out of the Eddy School with the union on issues around our evaluation process. And that would include not only the past guidelines, but new guidelines as we go into this school year, negotiating the situation relative to evaluation. And she also helped serve on a committee that was responsible for coming up with the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that both the union and the district is trying to work its way through on. And so her input is just amazing. And on top of the fantastic job she's doing at West with her staff. So Thank you, Mary Beth, for all those efforts.
Thank you.
I want to talk just briefly. Well, let's talk about Anne. And you're never going to find a more dedicated and gifted assistant to the superintendent than Ann Teff. And the hours that she works are incredible. And in some of our meetings, we've asked her to work evenings well into the night, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and she never complains and does just outstanding work. And it's difficult to imagine. I started the job with Ann as my assistant, and I was hopeful we might get to the end together, but that's not going to work at this point. And she is so gracious and so accommodating to any and everybody who calls or comes into our office. And that goes a long ways in terms of building a partnership with communities and families. And I can only wish her the very best. And I hope that she's able to have more time to see her grandchildren. And I will never forget all of the great work that she's done for me in the district. So, Ann, thank you so much. Isn't quite like if you were live.
No.
So I want to make sure that the boards understand as I come around that we're in a new phase of working on the temporary MOU that's in place for this school year under the virus. And we are now going into each of the schools. And I apologize for being just a bit late. Friday, we were at the Eddy School meeting with their building reps, the building principal, Mark, Ann, and Carol out of our HR office and myself to hear of any problems that we could discuss and try to find solutions to versus ever considering going down the grievance way with the MOU. I was in Orleans this afternoon on a virtual meeting with the same, it's always the same. It'll be the building reps. It will be the person on the staff member who will be on the negotiating team. It will be the building principal. It will be Mark and Ann, and it will be Tom and Carol having these conversations to see if we can settle any issues that have cropped up and try to avoid grievances at all costs. So that will be going on. We have 5 more schools to go to. And then I'm sure we have to find some solutions. So this is going to be weeks in the process of getting it all done. I also want to, Giovanna obviously will be talking about the budget process and schedule and things like that later in this meeting. But obviously we are very sensitive to our financial position this year. And obviously working on next year's budget and to understand the climate and the conditions that we would be planning for going forward. And I think next year's budget's going to be challenging, quite honestly. I'm trying as much as I can to get out around the district, and I look forward to being in all the buildings to show my support and interest in what's happening in each of our buildings. And that will be continuing as we go forward. I also want you to know that it will be a great day on Thursday when we have our last school bringing students onto campus. That's the high school. We are finished up with our ventilation work and air exchange and univent work, and we're prepared for them to come onto campus this coming Thursday in a hybrid model. And it's safe to say the students are very, very excited to see their classmates, their teachers, and get into that model going forward. And then right behind this, we're trying to get ourselves reorganized to get after contracts. This is a carryover from last spring to begin finalizing language with all our union meetings, and eventually bring forward COLAs that we think are reasonable after negotiating with the union. So, and I'm going to be speaking a little bit about enrollment and the document I believe you had in your packet, and we'll go from there. So, any questions that I can answer for you?
Okay, seeing none. We will move on to approval of fundraisers, and that was in our packet. Any questions about the fundraisers? I believe, except for maybe Laura might have some questions. These are basically what we've seen before. The Stop and Shop rewards, box tops, AmeriGas. You might be familiar just being in the school, Laura.
Yeah. Get it.
Then I'll wait for a motion to, Jill?
I move we gratefully accept the PTA's fundraising for this year, or for the year.
Okay, and do we have a second for that? Okay, Martha seconds. So all in favor? We'll just show our hand in the picture. Looks like aye. Okay, great. Tom, that brings us back to you for October enrollment.
Sure.
Okay.
So I hope you have that document in front of you, and I certainly recognize the busyness of this document. We wanted to, at least in our first go around, capture a number of key pieces of information, and it's as we get prepared to bring these forward for eventually meetings with FinComs and boards of selectmen and so forth, there's a distinct possibility we might go to another page and try to have a bigger font going forward. But the one change here, as you look at the front page, is that you can see that we have some numbers in red. And so often we are asked, so what was last year's first grade number, or last year's number, and things like that. So when you look at the red, that was last year's number at the grade level, and then you can see the number relative to what we had for a number as of last October 1. So, and then you can see, obviously we give you all the other information on the elementary schools. I think one of the telling pieces to me was that many of us had heard about the possible explosion of families staying here and sending kids into the public schools. And I know that we have some examples of that happening, but not necessarily anywhere near the numbers that we thought at one time. And so that didn't happen. And then you can see, if you're interested going forward, and obviously there's a lot of information here, you can see the middle school numbers, the high school numbers, and we've added those little sidebar charts to give you a little bit of information relative to school choice, things like that. The only other piece that I wanted to find a way to make sure we captured in this would be the number of kids who are homeschooled. And that's an area across the district. We probably have the highest number of homeschooling students this current year. And so this is just a beginning, just a chance just to get a glance at this. The second page gives you some historical information on the region. And I'm sure as we get into the budget season, this is a document that the boards like to have a handle on, and we tie it all together relative to the budget. So that's where we're at. And we have more work to be done on this going forward.
Okay, I'm seeing Jan's hand up.
Yes, thanks, Betsy. I wanted to ask Tom if there's some way that you could put an asterisk and some explanation about Wellfleet and maybe Orleans elementary pre-K as disappearing.
Okay, okay,
Because it skews the numbers incorrectly. Our children have moved on to another spot, but
okay,
it gives us a minus number that in fact we have a positive number if you don't count the preschool. Do you
okay,
see
that's,
what I'm saying? So,
I can certainly do that, Jan.
because in budget, sometimes that comes up and
Okay, sure.
thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else on enrollment for Tom? Okay. We're gonna look next at the budget expenditure report. So that'll be you, Giovanna.
Thank you. Let's go directly to page 8 of the report. Budget for fiscal 21 is $2,791,204. Year to date, we've expended $313,502. We've encumbered $2,282,002, leaving a budget balance of $195,700. We've encumbered all of the salary line items. We've encumbered the substitutes. We've encumbered for the utilities. What we did this year is we encumbered the utilities based on the actual expenditures of the prior year. So you're going to see the savings sooner than later during the year. So I'm going to go through the pages in detail this time around because everything is new and there's a lot here. Starting on page 1. As you may recall, when we did the budget in fiscal 21, we had a line item at the end of the budget reserved for negotiations. Since the negotiations are still in process and they haven't concluded for all the collective bargaining units, we have the line item here on page 1 at the bottom, line item 4,200 reserved for negotiation. So we encumbered the full amount pending the outcome of those negotiations. And what you'll see in the salary line item, we've encumbered based upon fiscal 20. We've encumbered based upon the actual amount that employees are getting without any COLAs. We have encumbered for steps and lane changes, but not the COLA. Okay, so a lot of these line items, salary line items, you'll see negative variances, but that's because we haven't allocated the reserve for negotiation money yet. Okay, so at the top of page 1, the first item I want to identify is line item 4005, the salaries principal. Again, here we're showing a negative variance of $6,162, and that's per the contract language, and the additional dollars for the principal are in that reserve for negotiation line item, and those will be reallocated once we complete the bargaining with the collective unions. Also on this page towards the middle, line item 4011, the contracted services non-instructional technology. We have a negative variance of $9,861. This is based on the needs of the building, but we're gonna be reclassifying expenses to school choice revolving as we budgeted in fiscal 21. So at some point we'll reclassify those expenses to school choice, and we had earmarked $20,000 of those expenses. The next line item 4014, the salaries teachers. Here we have a negative variance of $79,253, and that is due to step and lane changes, which are budgeted in the reserve for negotiation line item. In addition, we had changes in personnel to a full-time employee due to the need as a result of the COVID. And then we also had a reduction in the amount that was previously funded through grants. At the bottom there, we have the 4,200, the reserve for negotiation. We encumbered that full amount, the $91,702. Any questions on page 1? Moving on to page 2, at the top of the page, 4064, special education teacher salary. Again, this is contract language. We had movements in step and lane changes, and then the rest is in the reserve for negotiation. Moving on to 4067, the special education contracted services medical therapeutic. Here we have a positive variance of $3,841. We have expenses of $37,118 that will be charged directly to circuit breaker, and that is how we had budgeted for fiscal 21. Moving down to the last section on this page, the substitute line items, we've encumbered all of those line items to budget. Any questions on page 2? On page 3, the top of the page, account number 4019, the salaries at assistance. Here we have a positive variance of $28,146, and that is variance due to staff changes. We had an ed assistant who is now a teacher, and we had 1 resignation. The next line item, 4070, the special education salaries ed assistants. Here we have a negative variance of $25,585. And that is due to, we have a variance here for steps and lane changes. We also have a position that is being split between Wellfleet Elementary School and Eastham Elementary. Here I have the half the salary. It's actually the differential between the ed assistant cost and the teacher cost, and we will be billing that to Eastham Elementary. So that money will be going back into this line item. The next line item is 4104, the librarian's salary, and this negative variance, again, it's due to a step and lane changes. Okay, the next line item on this page towards the bottom, 4023, substitutes professional development. We encumbered that to budget. Any questions on page 3? Moving on to page 4, towards the bottom of the page, line item 4037, the salaries, guidance, and counselor. Here we have, between this line item and the line item below it, 4081, the special education salaries guidance. It's just the presentation and how we budgeted. So the negative variance in line item 4037 the positive variance in 4037 offsets the negative variance in 4081. It's just a coding. Any questions on page 4? Moving on to page 5, towards the middle of the page, line item 4045, the regular day transportation. When we prepared the expenditure report, we had encumbered the full amount that was budgeted. Since this report was generated, we have received good news from the collaborative. We have, based upon the savings from last year's shutdown, and the buses were idle for 3 months, we had some savings in expenses. So the savings that are for Wellfleet are $7,907 of savings. So that'll show up in next month's report. But I wanted to let the committee know that there are savings in this line item. Also, we had some savings in the special education transportation line item 4087. We encumbered the full amount, but again, we received notification that we would be getting a credit of $2,473 for the special education transportation. Okay, and then finally on this page, line item 4075, the salaries cafeteria, we have a negative variance of $2,775, and that's due to step changes that the employees went up a couple of steps, so that's reflected on here. Any questions on page 5? Moving on to page 6, at the top of the page, 4048, the salaries custodial, we have a negative variance here of $5,260, and that is due to step changes as well as additional hours that were required of the staff based on the COVID-19 requirements for cleaning. The next sections are the fuel, the bottled gas, the electricity, the telephone, the water. As I said previously, we encumbered based upon the prior year actual expenses, and we'll continue to monitor these monthly to make sure that there's no fluctuations. So the fuel oil, we have a positive variance, a savings of $27,000. The bottled gas, we have a negative variance of $200.
What has
Page-
happened?
I think she's frozen.
Uh-oh.
There she goes. You froze up on us.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh,
We heard about the fuel and the gas.
okay.
So started electricity.
Oh, the electricity, yes, we have a positive variance of $60,842. The telephone, we have savings of $475, and the water, we have a negative variance of $1,000. And we'll continue to monitor these utilities throughout the remainder of the school year. Any questions on page 6? Okay, moving on to page 7. At the top of the page, 4055, the contracted services building, we have a negative variance of $1,612, and that's based on the need for various repairs that were required in the building. We have elevator inspections, plumbing, carpet cleaning, screen repairs. We also, when we budgeted for fiscal '21, we had earmarked the use of money that was in the building use of $7,000. So as we accumulate expenses in here, we'll move those into the building use account. The next section is the after-school care section. Line item 4110 through 4115. We have savings in each of these line items, and that is because the program is not operational at this time. Okay. And then finally on this page, line item 4088, the special education preschool tuition. We have a positive variance of $28,374. And that is a savings in fiscal '21 as we prepaid in fiscal '20. That amount is part of the spend down plan. And we also had additional expenses of $10,250 that we charged directly to circuit breaker funds in fiscal '21. And that is how we had budgeted when we did the fiscal '21 budget. Any questions on page 7? And then finally on page 8, at the top of the page, line item 4098, the special education tuition collaborative. We had prepaid $28,000 in fiscal '20 as part of the end of year spend down plan. And so we had that savings this year. In addition, we had budgeted for a child to attend the collaborative in fiscal '21. The child is now being homeschooled, so we have additional savings there on top of the $28,000 that we had prepaid at the end of fiscal '20. So we've got about $70,372 of savings from the student not attending the collaborative this year. Any questions?
Of course.
Go ahead, Jan.
Your 195, does that seem like enough money to cover what you're going to need to disperse that you haven't so far?
Well, I looked at last year's report, Jan,
Yeah,
and last year's report was was a tough one because we were already at a negative variance at that point in time last year.
okay.
So we're in a much better place this year. However, we still have a few months to go to the end of the year, barring any unforeseen happenings. You know, the town has been very generous in sharing their CARES money with us. So we've charged quite a bit of COVID-related expenses to the town's CARE Act. We still have to make additional purchases for PPE. We'll have a conversation later with Mary Beth and Paul McHugh and the secretary, see how much of PPE they have in stock and what needs to be reordered for the remaining through December. So we'll watch it cautiously as we.
Because I also wondered, I know that you are using the CARES funds, but there were several things you mentioned that cost more. For example, Paul McHugh needing extra hours because of his work, extra work because of COVID. Well, can that be covered also through the CARES situation, or is that for something you can hold on to?
Yeah, we'll coordinate with the town to see if they'll be able to put that through under their CARES money as well. But that's a conversation with the town administrator.
But you'll try to do that, I would guess,
We'll
yeah.
try. We'll try.
Because of course, Tom mentioned at the top of his talk that budgeting is going to be a tough thing for next year. And if we can have a nice surplus and pay down lots of things, you know, all the better, of course. So keep that.
That'll help. Yes. Whatever savings that we have in fiscal 21 at the end of the year, that will help us in the budget for fiscal 22.
Right.
All right, anyone else, questions or comments for Giovanna? All right, that brings us to budget timeline. So I think we're back to you, Tom. Is that correct?
Gio, do you want me to take that or are you going to take it?
I'll take it. Okay, so the schedule, this is the typical schedule that we hand out to all of the school committees. This gives us a roadmap as to what our next few months will entail with respect to budgeting for fiscal 22. So we start with the October 1st enrollment projections that the superintendent detailed earlier in his presentation. We still await the town's budget guidelines. Those should be coming to us soon. Based upon those guidelines, that is how we budget. The budget input forms, we're looking to get those to all building principals the week of October 26th, so they can have plenty of time to work on their budgets for fiscal 22. The principals return all of their budget and complete backup materials to central office the week of November 23rd. And then the superintendent and I review them along with these principals the week of December 2nd through December 15th. We usually have a couple of meetings to go back and forth on what we're looking at for fiscal 22. The central office budget subcommittee will review the central office budget. Typically, we have 2 meetings to review the budget and pass the budget. So we'll have those scheduled November 18th and December 2nd. The final budget documents are due back to the central office the week of the 18th of December. And then in January, we start to present the budgets to all of the school committees. And we have the detailed listing here of the dates. We start in January and go all the way through March. The joint school committee meets in January 28th to vote and to review and vote the central office budget. The public hearings are held in February. The meetings with the Board of Selectmen and FinCom, those are yet to be scheduled at this time, but the superintendent and I usually attend all of those meetings with the respective towns. And then at the March meetings, the school committee will vote to approve and certify the budgets. And then we still have, we don't have the various dates for when the town warrants will be closing for each of the member towns and the town meetings as well and the town elections. So as we get that information, we'll fill in the dates on this 2021 budget calendar. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanna. Okay, that brings us to our harassment policy for our first reading. That was in our packet. Any questions, comments, or a motion?
I move we accept the harassment policy.
Martha, I saw your hand up. Were you wanting to ask?
No, I can second that.
Okay, great. So then raise your hand in the screen if all in favor. Okay, looks like it's unanimous. Topic G for us is communication. Over the last several months, this issue has come up for us. I think there's a wind of information and communication, and we just wanted to really spend a few minutes. Yes, I'm going to have Martha take the lead on it, but my thoughts were that I'm hearing the members want a little bit more broader communication than maybe just about Wellfleet Elementary. And so just sort of opening a conversation that may not solve everything today, but I think it's worth sort of an ongoing conversation. But at this point, I'd like to just hand it over to Martha. Martha, do you feel ready to sort of open up the conversation?
Sure, of course. First of all, I want to commend the administration. First of all, I'd like to commend Mary Beth, who has, since we first brought it up last spring, sent to us every single document she could possibly send. And I really appreciate that. She's certainly kept me busy. Careful what you wish for in some cases, but it was wonderful getting the letters to families and understanding all of the communication that was going home. And I would also like to commend central office, because since our last meeting, I find that there has been much more communication about things that are going on than I have seen in the past. As a school committee member, I am not positive really what our jurisdiction is. I know legally we are responsible for policy and we are responsible for the budget, and that's about it. And so some of the things that came up that I was concerned about really didn't have that much to do with, not directly much to do with the budget or a policy. And I guess my biggest concern was about, the most recent one was when I learned that the high school was being closed, and I did not learn that from the administration. I learned it later from a parent who was, concerned about it. And I just felt that I was unprepared to even recommend any course of action on her part in terms of getting more information, since I had no information. So I guess I brought it up because I wanted to make sure that those kinds of decisions that really affect everybody in the region and all of our families, I think should be communicated to us as quickly as possible. So that's what I wanted to say about communication.
Does anybody want to add on to that with a reflection or a question for Martha?
Well, I do agree, of course, that there's nothing better than getting good communication so you can share it, good information. But it may not be correct that we should have all the information, but the public expects us to have all the information. And so, they ask questions that aren't in our, I could say, well, I'll tell you about the elementary school. And they say, no, I want to know about, other things. And they do expect us to know and understand the system. So I think it just, is very important that we get this communication that we're getting now. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I guess I can just add in that, once I heard Martha's sort of reasoning behind it, because our Wellfleet children do attend more than just Wellfleet Elementary School. And so that broader perspective is helpful. And the same with you, Jan. I've been asked often about, the parents do expect us to know and numbers. I mean, I was confronted many times about our enrollment. Oh, I heard 50 new students at Wellfleet. Not exactly. So we are often, expected to know beyond perhaps Wellfleet elementary numbers. And I think just that knowledge and us just bringing that to the surface, it certainly won't fix every scenario, but I think just sort of allowing that, that we feel this as a responsibility, to our public who vote us into office, and the job that we carry for them. So
It's reassuring to them if you know what's going on.
it is.
As the school committee person, you don't know what's going on, they, find it rather disconcerting.
Yes. I also find it, and perhaps it's because I am in education and especially just since March, I mean, things have turned on a dime. What you hear one day is changed the next. And that type of thing is still kind of happening, maybe not every day, but there are things that are still changing. And so I always sort of keep a little, I guess, phrase or something in my back pocket so that if I am sort of surprised about something, I use a line, well, things are rapidly changing and we're trying to keep up. But but I'm immersed in it, and it really is. It's amazing how quickly some things have changed. I mean, I was never more surprised about Nauset's HVAC not passing and DY's passing. It's really like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Not what I had predicted, but at any rate, I think that what has been happening in our group is that we are, voicing it. And so, again, if something does happen, I think we should bring it up, and I think we'll visit it because we certainly, all of us can learn from, mishaps or mistakes or whatever's been going on. So I'm just wondering, do we add this to our list of like reports and information? Do we want a communication sort of standby thing, or are you feeling, Martha, that we have voiced it and this would be now a few, several times? How are you feeling you want to move on from this conversation, Martha?
Well, I'd like to hear from Tom, but I feel that Tom's report does tell us what's going on. It was good to hear about the high school today, for example. But I think that when things are happening suddenly, the communication that we received several weeks back about the teacher, a month ago, about the teacher from Eastham was timely. It was perfect. I felt that I had as much information as at least the news sources, and I was not caught unawares by people's questions. I was also pleased that nobody had any questions for me because I really didn't want to talk about it. But I really appreciated the communication. It was perfect. So if there's something like that that's happening that will end up showing up in the news or people finding out about, I'd appreciate an email, I think. I can't speak for the whole committee, but that's how I feel about it. So thank you, Tom, for that.
All right. Do we have any other comments, questions on this topic that anybody would like to surface? Okay. I'm going to move us on to the mask conference resolutions. 10 of them this year. Quite the list. Jill, do you want to lead this, or do you feel comfortable?
Just for time efficiencies, well, there's two different things. First of all, we need to choose a delegate, and I can't do it this year. And whomever we choose, it's by October 16th that form has to come from Tom. I'm sorry you've got something else on your list, but that form for the delegate sign up needs to have whomever is doing it and submitted and received by October 16th. So we do need to choose a delegate. And for time efficiencies, I would suggest that if somebody feels strongly differently as to what the resolutions committee has recommended, perhaps that might be the way to go. Otherwise, perhaps voting as a blanket, all of them that we approve.
Okay, thank you, Jill. I just wanted to ask Jill, sorry, Martha, I'm just gonna ask Jill one more thing, that I think the thing that's really important first is for us to find a delegate if you can't do it. And I'm wondering if you would spend a couple minutes telling us the responsibilities and what happens and what are the commitments that go along with that.
I believe it will definitely be virtual this year. So the delegate would be participating, our delegate would be participating on Saturday, I believe it's November 7th. I think it's at 1 o'clock, but the information is there. First of all, there will be a vote for the officers of MASC. And you've got the information of who's up to be voted in. And then there will be some reports, and then there will be discussions as to the resolutions. Of course, this will be the first time it's going to be a Zoom meeting or virtual, so I can't tell you exactly how that's going to work. But as a Wellfleet delegate, that person would be representing Wellfleet and voting. So yes or no. I have voted in the past for, and I've done it, I think, every single year of serving the committee. I have voted for what the committee wanted. You know, there's been a couple of times in the past I felt differently, but if there was the majority in the committee, I voted for what the committee wanted. Typically, it's a long commitment. You know, it could be 2 hours, it could be 3 hours, but of course, the positive is you're not driving to Hyannis.
Thank you, Jill. Do we have anybody who would like to volunteer to be our delegate this year? That person gets it.
He deserves it.
So is it just this November 7th thing, or it?
Yes,
Yes.
the meeting, yes.
I mean, I'd be willing to do it, but I would definitely like everybody's, you know, like you, Jill. I mean, I would want everybody's input, for sure, of whatever I would need to do. I don't know if that's appropriate, being that I'm the newest and still figuring everything out.
Well, if we have a consensus, you're voting yes or no. Also, you do get to listen to people who feel strongly about the resolutions or not. So it can be very interesting, the debates.
Yeah, I mean, I put my hat in there if again, I think you all should say whether it's appropriate or not, because I am so new.
Sure.
But if I'm understanding, we're just talking about Saturday, November 7th to participate in that meeting and on behalf of all of us. Is that okay? So
Laura, are you-
Laura, and thank her for offering.
I second that.
I third that.
Yeah.
So Martha, I had interrupted you before, and I just want to double check that, was there something that you needed to add to the conversation?
I was going to say two things. One of them is moot, and that was if nobody else wanted to do it, I would do it. But Laura, my dog barked, and that was the end of that. So.
Okay. All right. We
I
have
love
been
that
very,
animal.
yeah, we have been very spoiled by Jill. She has done it every year since I've been on.
And before.
She has actually enjoyed it a bit, but I think she also has done her service.
No, I can't, I have a conflict. Otherwise, I'd seriously be up for doing it,
Yeah.
especially Zoom.
Yeah. So thank you, Laura, which brings us to the resolutions that were in our packet. There were 10 of them. Many of them equity, COVID related. I know I had a chance to go through them all and I could easily do a bundle vote. But did anybody want to discuss anything in particular before we vote and let Laura know which to do? Yes, Jan.
Of course. We talked about this when it came up before. Number 3, the way they phrased the last line in the whereas on the top of page 27. Again, they've said, acknowledge that all lives cannot matter until Black Lives Matter. And I just have the worst time with the idea that all lives cannot matter. I can't put that phrasing together with lives, I guess. So to me, it would either have to say all lives matter only when Black Lives Matter, which would be the right phrasing, or until Black Lives Matter, all lives cannot matter, but I hate saying cannot matter. It's just, to me, you never say a life doesn't matter. It's just not right. So I have a problem with the wording of it, but not the idea of it. So I don't know, there's not much way you can work with that. I'm sorry. I'm for the article, for the resolution, but. And then the other one is the next one, the voting age. I don't know much about that, but my instinct is that 16-year-olds are not a great idea to vote on local elections. And so I disagree with that one. And the rest of them I'm okay with.
Okay, does anyone else want to chime in? Anything to say? Jill?
Resolution 3, I understand, Jan, your discomfort with the wording. However, the intention of Resolution 3 deals with curriculum. And definitely school systems need to look at history and cultural context. And because the thrust of this truly is curriculum, this is an area that needs assessment and development. So I'm comfortable with Resolution 3 as is.
Okay. I'm wondering, okay, so I'm not seeing Martha anymore, but she's been popping in and out, so maybe she'll be.
What about 4? What about the voting, 16-year-old voting age?
So I can add into something about that. I did hear a nice interview on NPR about this, and part of the reasoning of starting kids earlier is pattern and to have them something, because when you get to be 18, that age, they're just going to college, they're trying to negotiate that, so they don't have a pattern of voting. And so that's what they were saying, is that impacts then what happens is there's a very low voting turnout for that 18 to 20 something turnout. And then once they grow up and get settled, they start voting. So part of the argument that I heard was starting it earlier so that when you go to college, it's just something that you've already done. So it's not a big deal to say, oh, I need to, get an absentee ballot or whatever. So that was just what I heard about it. just to say that. I'm not saying my opinion on it at this point. Although I would say that I could bundle vote yes to everything to give you an idea of where I stand. Martha, something to add?
I think what sold me on that one, I certainly know a lot of 16-year-olds who probably shouldn't be voting, but I know a lot of 50-year-olds and 70-year-olds who shouldn't be voting. But the fact that a 16-year-old can be tried as an adult sold me on the fact that if one can be tried as an adult, one should be able to vote.
Okay. The one I did have a question was number 10 on attendance, and I'm wondering how Tom or Mary Beth feel about this one, because it's really about holding schools accountable. And so I was wondering about your feeling on that one.
It waives accountability, so it frees people up.
Oh, it waives it. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Betsy, do you want me to weigh in on this?
Would you?
So I don't have a real problem with this, quite honestly. And so if you're asking me, I see no problem with supporting it.
Okay. Since it does seem like we've had a few considerations, do we want to go through and vote one by one instead of bundling, just to give Laura a sense of what the majority wants of the vote of the committee?
I'm happy to move that we bundle all but number 4, because I haven't heard people disagree except for me with number 4. So I'm happy to bundle them 1 through 3 and 5 through 10, if we can all agree on those. And I am going to object to number 4. So, you know, if we could vote that separately, I would appreciate it.
Okay, great. So voting now on 1 through 3 and 5 through 10. Let's
So
go
moved.
one. Okay, so Jill has moved it. So let's vote one by one. So say your name and a yes or a no. So start with Jill.
Yes.
Laura,
Laura, yes.
Jan,
Yes,
Martha,
Yes,
and Betsy, yes. And now we'll look at resolution 4. And so we'll just go through the roll call vote. Jill,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Jan,
no,
Martha,
yes,
and Betsy is a yes.
okay.
So just in tidying up this agenda item, Laura will need the paperwork and she'll need to sign it and get it back by October 16th. That doesn't give us many days. I'm not sure if it can be done digitally or not, but can that be worked out?
Yeah, we have the paperwork. I don't think she has to sign anything.
No, we have the paperwork and we can just put her name on it as a delegate.
Okay.
And we submit it.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank you.
okay.
And then
And
how will Laura get the information about the meeting, Jill, to like the Zoom link and all that?
I don't know. This is all new.
Oh, so
Once
maybe
we
submit
say
her
her
name.
name,
You know,
she'll probably
for,
get it.
you know, it's always
Okay.
been in person.
Okay, I'm sure that when they submit your name, Laura, then, you know, they'll submit the email that you gave us. And so I'm guessing information will come to that.
Okay. If not, I'll reach out to someone.
Well, mask maybe.
Somebody will help you.
Before November 7th. But what
Okay,
about
that
the
brings,
other 6 through, did we 6
we
through
did
10?
everything. So everything's a
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
We
Sorry,
did 1 through 3 and 5 through 10 in one vote. That was a yes. And then 4 was a 4-1 vote.
Gotcha.
All right, I'm going to move us on to appointing the school committee recording secretary.
That's very nice of her to agree to do it.
Do you need a vote?
Yes.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, why don't we raise our hands? Can you see us, Anne? It looks like it's unanimous. That brings us to reports and information. Do we have something from the Cape Cod Collaborative?
Yes, there was a meeting on September 9th. The Waypoint Alternative High School does have the security of being at the Wing School in Sandwich until December 31st, 2021. There has been a reaching out by the YMCA, Camp Burgess, and as far as a future site, because the Sandwich one will not work anymore after the lease is over. So there's a request for proposals. Also, it appears that the collaborative is going to hire a commercial real estate broker, because they've looked into this before and it gets very complicated and very messy. Additional teachers have been hired to supplement the teachers that the collaborative already has. So just more teachers in the in-person classrooms. And the report from teachers, as well as the main administrator that deals with staff, is things have gone very, very well. Of course, they already had summer school in person, but things have gone exceedingly well. And also staff are very happy to be back. The traditional in October or November all Cape in service training, professional development rather, will not be happening for obvious reasons this year. However, the collaborative has been instrumental in that modern teacher professional development, that 986 educators across the Cape have been taking advantage of this modern teacher professional development. And the Challenger Club, which deals with children who are socially and cognitively challenged. The Challenger Club also shares the facility in Osterville with the collaborative, and it's time to renew their lease with the Challenger Club for another 10 years. And it's been a very nice, very advantageous partnership. So that will be happening again, but no surprise, old building, and there's going to be significantly an increase in money that needs to happen for the maintenance of the building. So those are the highlights of the last meeting, and there will be a meeting tomorrow.
Thank you, Jill.
Welcome.
So preschool enrollment was included in our packet, I think.
No, we didn't have it.
Okay, so nothing there. PTA, I haven't heard anything. Mary Beth, have you? Okay. Strategic Planning Committee, Martha, anything to say?
I have not heard anything about our strategic planning committee.
Okay, and the Substance Abuse Mental Health Task Force, Martha?
Yes, we are meeting, I believe it's October 27th for our first meeting, so I will report in next month.
Great. Wellness Subcommittee.
that was really what Mary Beth talked
was-
about today's meeting, right?
The new group she's initiating, yes.
Right.
Okay, great. And then any future agenda items? Okay. Then we'll go for approval of the minutes. Are there any additions or edits?
Yes,
Jan, you have something?
yes. Page 1, that was a Freudian slip, and It said you put down chair Plowy
Okay.
in the.
What page is that? What page is that?
Page one.
Yeah.
That just sort of came out. And
I'll
so
correct that.
you can fix that, please. And on page 3, I don't know, it just seemed to me when we were talking about future agenda items, communications was the big thing. So I thought maybe that should just be in there. Choose a delegate, delegate meeting, but also say future agenda item communication. I don't know. That was my thought.
Thank you, Jan. Anybody else for any amendments to the minutes? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I move,
Second,
Great, all in favor of approving the minutes? That's as amended, obviously.
Right.
Okay, great. And
Thank you, Ann,
Martha, is your
for all
hand
of
still
you.
up? Martha, do you have something to say?
no, I could,
Oh.
I couldn't find myself, but I'm okay
Oh,
now.
okay. Are you ready to